Hi, my name's Neil Martin and I work for the Outdoors Group, and today we're going to be talking about the art of storytelling. So we're all storytellers really, even though we might not realise it, and there are lots of simple exercises you can use to bring out the storyteller in you, and without you realising it, you're probably telling stories already every day with your children, grandchildren, friends, relating stories to each other, and that's part of your life, and certainly traditionally that would have been something, you know, in the days before television and everything else, that's something we would have been doing a lot more and would have just been normal. So hopefully now I can show you some simple exercises and improving your memory and giving you more confidence to tell stories to your children or to your school or your class or whatever area you might want to develop that into. Okay, so some ideas for yourself to improve your storytelling and some ideas that you can share with the children that you work with or within your family. So a simple one you can do to start off with if you're not that confident, feeling confident about storytelling, is to learn short story. So it's good to learn a story from memory rather than reading from a book, I feel. Or you can just share the story with your group or your class that you're working with, and everyone just tells a sentence or two sentences of the story each as you go round the room or round the circle, around the fire, and that makes it a lot easier. Everyone's involved and you don't have to remember the whole story yourself. If you want to start remembering stories yourself, then start, as I said, with a short story and go from there really, and find a story that you like yourself or you feel passionate about. You're more likely to learn the story and you'll be able to put it across in a much better way. Some people will learn in different ways, so there are different exercises you can use to improve your memory and increase your confidence in storytelling, and ways to involve your learners as well. One of the exercises I like is poetry tree. So you can find a tree and then get the group to find as many adjectives as they can to describe the tree and write those down, and then from those adjectives make a poem or a short story. This just fires up your brain a bit to just explore the story. Also everyone's involved, so you're not just down to one person to try and work out a story or work out a poem. No one feels under pressure. You can all work together and then perhaps perform the short story or poem together. Some people can read, some people could maybe sign or dance or do different interpretations of the story or poem, and it gives everyone a chance to be involved in that. Another exercise would be to go and collect things from the woodland or from the garden or wherever you're working outdoors, natural objects which all can be involved in the story that you're creating. These objects also can act as prompts, so when you're telling the story and you see the acorn or the conker or whatever you collected, it's going to be a prompt to remember the next part of the story. So all these things can help you with your memory, they can help with telling the story, and they can be prompts and props within the story. So they're all serving different purposes. Okay. So now you want to develop the story a bit more. As I say, start with a short story, learn that. But if you want to develop your storytelling more, maybe go and listen to some other storytellers, read stories, and you might get to the point where you write some stories yourself or improvise stories with your children. But start developing stories, start building your confidence and your memory, and start thinking about different ways of telling the story. So as I said, we talked about props earlier on. Also might be costumes that you're wearing, and also think about different ways of starting and finishing your story. Obviously once upon a time is the classic start to a story, but there are other ways to start a story. It can be a long time ago, it could be once upon a time in a faraway land, it could be in the future, it could be in the past, it could be on another planet. But you can look lots of different starts and different endings as well. It wouldn't just be this is the end of the story or the end. It could be there are other stories to tell, but those are other stories for another time. It could be all sorts of things. So explore all these avenues, look at other storytellers, look at the books. We'll give you some recommendations for that at the end of this film. And most of all, find something that you're passionate about. As I said, you'll tell the story much better, and enjoy it and have fun. Don't worry about the sequence so much, and don't worry about making mistakes either, because more than likely the story you're telling, the children or whoever's listening might not have ever heard that story before, so they're not going to pick up on bits that you might have missed out or bits that you ad-lib. That's all part of it. How Raven became black. Once upon a time, when the world was young, Raven was white. And at that time, when Raven was white, what colour was Raven? White. Not a lot of people know that. Also at this time, the trees were formed, the plains were formed, the mountains were formed, but there were no rivers or lakes. And one day, Raven was flying down the valley, and he spotted some creatures moving in the distance on two legs, and he flew down for a closer look. When he got closer, he could see they were very thin and frail and pale and unwell looking, and he also realised at that point that they were humans. He had seen one other human before who lived on the edge of the woods in a hut, and he recognised them, and he recognised their unhealthy look and their paleness, and he felt sorry for them, because ravens and crows and corvids are very intelligent animals and they sense these things. And so off Raven flew and collected some seeds, and he flew back and he dropped the seeds on the ground, and also he pooped on the ground, and seeds settled, and over some time crops started to grow, and the humans were grateful for this. But Raven still noticed that they still didn't look quite right, and the problem was water. And he had noticed them trying to set up weird contraptions to collect water, rainwater, but it wasn't enough to sustain them. And at that point, a light bulb went on in Raven's head, bing, and he realised that he needed to go and see the man in the hut on the edge of the woods. And off he flew. And he knocked on the door. And the man opened the door and said, "Oh, hello Raven. I haven't seen you for ages. How are you?" And Raven said, "Oh, I'm fine, thanks." And the man said, "Do come in, and sit down." And he sat by the fire, and over in the corner of the hut, he could see a spring, a well that the man guarded carefully. And he thought, and being cunning and clever, he thought, "I know what, I'll tell a slow and boring story to the man." So he started his story, and the man started to fall asleep. You can have some snoring. And he started to hop round the fire and drink from the fountain, from the water, from the spring, and he started to slurp up. I need some slurping. And just then the man woke up and said, hey, what are you doing there?" Raven said, nothing, I'm just stretching my wings. I was getting a little bit hot by the fire." Said the man suspiciously. "Carry on with the story." So he carried on with the story, and he waited a bit longer this time until the man was properly snoring and properly asleep. And he went round and he hopped round and slurped some more. So not only was he drinking the water, he was trying to store the water in his body, and his body was starting to swell up like a balloon. It was getting bigger and bigger. And then the man woke up again and said, hey, what are you doing there?" He said, nothing. I just thought I'd, oh, you have got a lovely hut, haven't you? Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, how did you get it like this? And you keep the thatch so nicely. said the man. Carry on with the story. So he carried on with the story, and he went on a bit longer this time, until the man was properly asleep, really snoring deeply. And he hopped round and he slurped up some more water, and he was getting bigger and bigger. And this time the man woke up and definitely caught him red-handed. He said, "Hey, you're stealing my water." And he picked up a stick and he chased him round the fire, and Raven tried to take off because it was so heavy, he was really struggling, and up, and he got stuck in the smoke hole in the thatch. And the man put more wood on the fire and tried to stoke up the fire to frighten Raven and burn him out. And as Raven struggled, a bit of water came out of his mouth, out of his beak, onto the fire, and a bit more, and the fire started to smoke, and the smoke made his feathers go black. And eventually a bit more water came out, and just enough so he could squeep. He squeeped, he squeezed out of the hole, and out he went, and outside, and flapping and flopping and haphazardly just about keeping himself going. And every so often a bit more water came out of his beak, and when that landed on the ground, it formed the lakes. And on he went, forming a few more lakes as he went, as more water came out of his beak. And eventually he came to the valley where the humans were, and he flew down the valley, and he let out a gradual amount of water all down the valley. And that's how the rivers were formed. And the humans were grateful, and they waved to Raven and said thank you. For now they had a ready supply of water, and they settled there in the valley and lived happily there with the animals. Raven visited them every so often, and they all lived happily ever after. That's one way you could end that story. Or another way you could end that story is there are other stories about Raven, of course, and Crow and other corvids and wise other animals, cunning animals like jackal and coyote. But those are other stories for another time. And that was a story about how Raven became black and how the rivers and lakes were formed. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again another time.